I'm sure we've all heard the discourse on whether Souls games should have an easy mode or not, and my answer to that is just a simple, hard, flat no. But please, let me explain why. Because you see, the Souls games already have a difficulty mode, and that difficulty mode will be your starting class, aka your build. And it goes a little something like this: strength for hard mode, dexterity for medium, and magic for easy. Keep in mind, throughout this video, I'm only going to be really talking about Elden Ring because I think it's almost perfected the difficulty issue. But it has some flaws, which we'll get to later. But let's get back on track. The main reason I think that Souls games, and honestly most games, should not have a difficulty setting is because it never feels quite right. When I'm tasked to pick between easy, normal, hard, or sometimes very hard, I never know which one of those options will satisfy my masochistic personality. Normal difficulty seems like the obvious pick, but they usually title it as recommended or the way the game was meant to be played or a balanced experience. But I'm usually looking for a challenge when I play games, hence the whole masochistic personality thing. But when I play games on hard, they're not really hard, they're just tedious to play. They usually just give the enemies a bunch of health and double their damage, making the game a complete slog to play. And the worst part is, when I finish the game on easy or normal, I go, did I waste my time? Did I miss out on some sort of core experience or challenge? But if I play on hard or higher, I always ask myself, am I screwing myself over? Is this even properly designed? There never seems to be a sweet spot where I'm happy with the difficulty. But thankfully, Souls games have completely removed all of that nonsense. They just put you in the game. If something is hard, it's supposed to be hard. If something is easy, it's supposed to be easy. Even if the game is not balanced at all, it still feels like you're playing the game as intended. It still feels like you're experiencing the developer's vision. And Elden Ring does this nearly perfectly, as I mentioned earlier. Going with a magic build such as Faith or Sorcery is basically the game's easy mode, and it basically solves every single problem I have with game difficulty settings. If you choose to go down the path of a magic build, the game is just as hard, you're just approaching it from a less punishing playstyle. When you beat the game, you'll feel just as satisfied as everyone else. You used all the tools at your disposal to take on and overcome this massive challenge. Good job. And if you beat the game naked with a club while screaming like a chimpanzee, congratulations, you're just that good. And contrary to what the internet will have you believe, people don't actually care about what build you use to beat the game. They don't even care if you cheese any of the bosses, they just want to hear about your experience and how it's similar and different from theirs. And while I do think Elden Ring handles this style of difficulty almost perfectly, it fumbles the ball at the most important part of the implementation. And that fumble, my friends, is with respecting your character. And I don't mean respecting your character, I mean respecting your character. And yes, I know there is a very important lore reason why Queen Renala is able to respect your character, but locking respecting player characters behind potentially 3 to 4 boss fights is objectively stupid. And this is coming from a guy who's beaten the entire game 4 times now, including the DLC. You see, locking this feature off from players early on nearly kills how well the game balances its difficulty. Because if a player wants to try a new weapon or doesn't know what they're doing and specs their character wrong, they're stuck unless they go grinding trash mobs or create an entire new character. And neither option is particularly fun. But the final kick in the balls for my perfect example is, even when you have beaten Renala and are able to respect your character, powerful tiers are limited and can be very hard to find. And yes, I know previous Souls games were even more limited and Dark Souls 1 had no way of respecting your character at all. It's still a bad system for something that has the potential to be perfect. All FromSoft would have to do is let Kale or Melina respect your characters early on in the game with some sort of rune cost, and the system will be so much better. Speaking of FromSoft, if Sekiro gets a sequel, I think FromSoft should really balance out their stealth system. If we get a sequel, I think the game should have 2 playstyles, where one is a direct attack and parry focused playstyle, and the other one is more stealth focused. The stealth playstyle could have significantly lower health and attack power, but do higher critical damages to enemies when using stealth attacks. This would allow players with less skill with parrying to enjoy the game more without diluting the core experience of the game. Now that I'm thinking about it, Armored Core 6 already does everything I'm asking for here. That game is mission based and each mission has its own unique objective, but the game always allows you to bring whatever build you want into it. Some missions favor speed, some favor durability, and some favor some good old-fashioned heavy artillery. But it's up to you as a player to customize your mech to be able to complete each of these missions. And the absolute best part is you can buy and sell each part of the mech for the exact same price. That means you're never locked into one playstyle. The only thing holding you back is your own creativity. So yeah, in the future, if you're ever looking for an example of how to perfectly balance a game, just look at Armored Core 6. My only criticism is that the game can feel a bit easy at times, but I feel like if they fixed up the enemy AI, then that criticism would immediately go away. But do keep in mind, the goal of this video isn't to complain that Elden Ring is too hard. I want the difficulty of these games to keep going up. Personally, I'm currently on my 5th playthrough as a Bronon, a barbarian with a massive axe and a disgust for all living and non-living things. I just think the more playstyles we have in these games, easier and harder, the better the games and the difficulty in general will be. But in conclusion, I think games should stop using difficulty selectors and focus more on game designs that organically adjust the game's difficulty based on player choice and builds. And I do genuinely think that with this kind of system, players like myself will feel more satisfied and feel more accomplished when we finish our favorite titles. And that's it. Thank you for watching.